Okay, I'm going to work through number 1 and number 2, where you have to use a graphing calculator to find the zeros and the relative minima and maxima. And we're going to round to the nearest tenth. I might end up doing the nearest hundredth. All right, so here we have x to the fourth minus 3x squared minus x. I'm going to go over to the calculator mode here and enter this into y equals. So there's my y equal page. And I'm going to type in x to the fourth, and I need to put the little caret button and then 4. Now I have to press to the right to get out of the exponential part. So minus 3x squared, I can just press the squared. I don't need to move out of the exponent because when you use this button here, it's already going to be out. So then we have minus x. So I've got my polynomial entered. I'm going to go look at the graph. So if you look over here, we can see a better view of the graph. In fact, I can actually make this larger. Let's see how that looks. Okay, now I'm going to adjust the window. So my window, if I look at my graph here, all the values I need are within the x value of -2 and +3. And 1, -1, 2, 3, 4. For my y values, -4, it's going to go -5. -5 all the way to +2. And that gives me enough room. So I'm going to go to Window, which is right here on the calculator, and I'm going to change these values. Now you don't have to delete that. If you don't move the cursor, you can just type in -2 and it'll type right over and replace the other number. Go down to x maximum, we said 3, and then go down, leave the x scale as 1. For the y minimum, we said -5. And for the y maximum, we said 2. And then if I go to graph, I can see that I'm completely zoomed in to the graph. Now, if I look at the graph, you can see there's a 0 over here. And if you look really closely in the middle curve here, it does go up above the x-axis. So you've got 2 zeros over here and then 1 over there. So when we go through to find our zeros, we have to make sure that we go through and do all 4. And then we've got 2 minimums and 1 maximum. I'm going to go from left to right, so I might skip around here doing my zeros and then do a minimum, do a 0, do a maximum, and otherwise I'm moving all over this graph to get all the zeros and then moving back and forth to the minimums. And so I'm just going to try to save time. Okay, so to do this, we go to the second button and then the trace button, which is right up here. And that puts us into the calculation mode. So we're going to calculate the 0, which is number 2. You could just press number 2. So now I'm going to use this cursor to move left. And what I'm going to do is I'm doing a left bound. You see the left bound down there? So I'm going to go to the left, and if I'm moving left across this line, moving left gets above the x-axis. So move left, left, left until I get above the x-axis. And now I'm above the x-axis because my y value is positive. And I can press enter. Now it's asking for a right bound, so I'm going to move to the right at least 1 click, and you can see my y value is now a negative down here. So I have definitely went across the x-axis. So I can go ahead and say enter, and then enter to say yes, I want it to guess, and my 0 is -1.53. So if I go over here, I have a 0 at -1.5. If I keep it to the nearest tenth, it's just going to be -1.5. Okay? So now that's the first 0. Now I'm going to do the the minima here. So I'm going to go to second, trace, and I'm going to do number 3 for the minima, or the minimum. Now it's asking me for a left bound, so I have to be to the left of that low part. So just close. It doesn't need to be extremely close, but close. It can't be up, it's better to be down here than to be up here. So enter, Now I'm going to go down and I'm going to make sure I go down and I start coming back up. So now I've started coming back up with my cursor. So I'm going to choose that as my right bound, press enter to make the guess. And my minimum is, at this point, is negative 1.13 and negative 1.07. So I'm going to put negative 1.1 and negative 1.1. So for my minimum, it's negative 1 and zero point 0.1 and negative 1.1. Okay, and let me clean this up here. All right, now I'm going to go back to the calculator, and I've got my next thing here is a 0. So I'm going to go second trace and choose 2 for 0. Now I'm going to be on the left side of that 0, and I'm moving to the right and I'm going uphill. So to be left, I have to stay underneath the x-axis. Okay, so I'm underneath there. I could tell that because of the negative. I'm going to press enter. Now I'm going to move to the right until I cross over the x-axis. I'm at positive zero point 0.1 or 0.1. I'm going to press enter and then say enter for the guess. And that is at negative 0.34. So I'm going to go over here. Another 0 is at negative 0.3. So 0.3. And now back to the calculator. My next point up here would be the maximum, so I'm going to go ahead and do that next. So second trace and number 4 is the maximum. I'm going to move over just a little bit to get closer to that peak. Press enter for my left bound. Go over until to the right of that peak until I start moving down. Press enter again, and then press enter to make the guess. And it says negative 0.16, so negative zero point 0.2 and 0.81, sorry, negative positive 0.084, and I will put that as zero point 0.1. So negative zero point 0.1, no, zero point 0.2, because we're going to round it to the nearest tenth. So negative zero point 0.2 and zero point 0.1. So go over here. That was the maximum. Negative zero point 0.2 and positive zero point 0.1, right? Negative zero point 0.2 and positive zero point 0.1. Negative zero point 0.2 and positive zero point 0.1. Okay, good. Just confusing myself there. All right, so now go to second trace. We're going to find the next 0, so number 2. And we want to make sure we're to the left of that 0. So here we're left. So you can see if we're going to the right, we're moving down. So moving right would go down past below the y-axis. Our y is positive, so I'm going to press enter. I'm going to move to the right until my y value is negative. See, now it's negative. I will press enter and enter again for the guess, and that is at 0, 0. So another 0 at the value of 0. And now I'm going to find this next minimum. So second trace minimum. I'm going to move to the right. And down until I get close. I will press enter for the left bound, move to the right until I start coming back up. Press enter again for the guess. And that is going to be 1.3 and negative 3.5. So 1.3, negative 3.5, and those are my two minimums, and I've got one more 0 to do. So I'm going to go over here. Whoa. Oh yeah, I gotta do second trace and find my zeros. So you see I didn't do the second trace and my cursor went just to the right and was not even on the graph anymore. So my over here, my left bound moving to the right was going to go up above the y-axis, x-axis. So my left bound has to be underneath the x-axis. So I press enter. I move to the right, and that gets me above the x-axis. So I press enter for my right bound and enter for the guess. and that is going to be 1.9. So I'm going to go to over here and put 1.9. Okay, so I have four zeros. I could write them as ordered pairs. It'd just be negative 1.50, negative zero point 0.3, comma 0, 0, 0, and 1.9, comma 0. But you don't have to. I'm fine with it just written the way I have it right here. And if I were to try to graph this, it's going to come down around the middle here and down about 1.1. Okay, and then it's going to come up above and then go back down to about negative 3.3 and then back up. Okay, and that's more or less a little sketch, and that's really all I care about. Okay, now on to number 2. I'm going to go over my calculator. I'm going to go to y equals. I'm going to clear it. I'm going to go to zoom and press 6 for standard. And now that'll put my graphing part back the display. And now I go to enter that polynomial. So that is going to be x cubed, move out of the exponent there, plus 2x squared minus 4x minus 5. Okay, and now I'm going to graph this. And this is plenty clear. I don't need to zoom in or anything like that because all my points are, there's nothing extremely close to have to worry about that. So I'm just going to go ahead and do all my my zeros and everything. So second trace, I'm going to find the first 0, and it's all the same process as I did before. So I have to be to left, which is down below. Press enter, move to the right, that's above, press enter again, and I get negative 2.8. So negative 2.8. All right, I'm going to find the maximum. So let's see, number 4. I'm going to go over here. I want to make sure I'm to the left of the peak. Press enter, go to the right of the peak, press enter, and enter again. And that's negative 2 comma 3. So negative 2 comma 3 is the maximum. And eventually we will have a minimum. Whoops, minimum. Okay, let's go and do the next 0. Second trace, oops, number 2. So I'm going to make sure I stay left here. You can see I'm moving to the right and it's going down. So staying left, I have to be positive on the y, press enter, move to the right, and now I'm negative on the y. So press enter and enter again. And that's at negative 1, 0. So that 0 is at negative 1. Okay, and now we go over here and do the minimum. So number 3. And we're going to move to the right until we get down close to that bottom there. Press enter. Continue going to the right until we cross through that. Press enter and enter again. And that is at point 0.7 when you round that to the, oh wait, yeah, 0.7 and negative 6.5. 0.7 and negative 6.5. Okay, and then the next 0 is going to be, let's see here, we move to the right to get over closer to the 0. Oops, I went too far. Press enter, move to the right, press enter, and enter again for the guess. So 1.8. So that's at 1.8. So here's all our information. And the graph we know is going to be going close to -3. It's going to be going up to 2 and 3, so we can go up here, come down. We go through another 0 at -1, and then we're going down to about right here, and then up at 1.8, so right here. So now I just need to connect that and continue up, and there's my graph. Okay, and that does it for number 1 and 2.